I would be doing like an end of tenancy style clean on someone's flat and being paid £10 an hour. So early on when I got into, I really need to stop doing that. Oh, clean this. There's always something to clean. There's always something to clean. That is the moral of the story. That's where I was originally going with all of this, and now I'm hot. I was meant to be going out the door. Just quickly wanted to freshen up before I go to my client. Getting makeup everywhere. Yeah, so moral of the story is when I first got into the industry, the cleaning industry, this was a couple of years ago, and it was just before lockdown. A simpler time, a better time generally. So I would get booked out for these jobs, and because I didn't know any better, I didn't know what was expected of me in the jobs. And being a person who naturally likes to do things properly, I would be doing like an end of tenancy style clean, not knowing that I'm actually doing an end of tenancy style clean, because I think this was my first job that I'd ever got booked on. By the time I left in 3 hours, I was absolutely sweating. Like, it was mental. I was doing everything. I even did the patio, I washed the windows, I did the conservatory, you know, they're like it was a 1-bedroom flat. 3 hours I was booked in for. So when you're thinking about what £10 an hour equates to, £10 an hour is the type of work that is not going to be on your hands and knees. You're not going to be doing hard, extensive, laborious work, getting into the nitty gritty. You know, you're going to just be doing the surfaces, just doing a general clean. This was a end of tenancy style clean that I did. I'm not even joking. It was mental what I did. When I think back now, it was mental. So obviously you have your light work clients where you are just generally just going in, doing a little light work, doing a bit of hoovering, doing a bit of general, just touching up surface wipe downs and stuff. But as jobs were coming up and I'm being sent on them, I started to say to the lady I was working with at the time, like, should I be doing this much work for that price? It doesn't seem to equate, because if someone wants me to come in, she was like, no, you're meant to be just doing the top level surface. So this is now the first time she's ever told me this, and I've been like just taking the odd job here and there for like a couple of years. Obviously during lockdown I didn't want to do it. As things started to open up again, obviously then certain jobs have started to come back up, and some of them I loved. Some of the clients were amazing. I always went over and above for them because, you know, that's what I like to do. But they were so grateful for it. It always made it feel worth it. But when new clients would come up, I said to the lady, I said, well, you know, I'd really like to start taking a look at what the properties look like beforehand, because it may be a case of this person needs to have a very deep clean before someone can come in and take it on as a regular client, where they're just going to be literally touching up the surfaces and doing a light hoover, you know, doing a light mop in and just making it look gleaming again. That's what you should be doing for around £10 an hour. But if you're doing anything that it requires you to be on your hands and knees, doing skirtings, doing edges, especially if you're detailing, getting into nitty gritty spaces, descaling to a degree because it's using more abrasive toxic chemicals, this is all deep cleaning, and I don't think people are focusing enough on getting the deep cleaning done regularly, and therefore they're requiring their regular cleaner to come in for 2 hours, and they're not getting the level of service that they need, because that cleaner, if they're coming from an agency, they're not being paid to do the deep cleaning. They're being paid to generally tidy up and make it just look surface level again. Now, I've gone to a house where the woman said to me, you know, I keep on top of everything. You know, she was an elderly lady. I keep on top of everything. Everything looks great. Like, we walked in and I was thinking, wow, this looks like amazing. But as I get down now to the cupboards, to around the, you know, the drawer handles, the the door handles, into the corners where the doors are, up the frames, into the corners, along the cupboards, in the bathroom. There's all of these accumulations where it takes a fine toothbrush, literally, to get it all out. Now, the person's going to come in and go, well, it looks exactly like how I left it, because they're not getting down to that level and really seeing where the build-up is and what you're actually doing, which is why I encourage people, if you're doing these sort of jobs and you feel like you are doing more than what you're necessarily being paid for, it is really good to get footage of this so you can actually show the person that this is what it looked like before and this is what I've done. You know, that's how it's been lifted. You know, I can look at my even window frames now and I can see, I'd love to get a toothpick and get right into the grooves, right into the seams. I might have to do that right now. Stop this whole video, because it just accumulates. Even now, like this whole area in front of me, that's going to be what maybe my focus is going to be when I get back from work. Because I try to just deep clean and declutter at least one area a day, something. Even if it's just putting a few pieces of paper together and putting the pens back. Just generally, if everyone in the house is just doing these things, once the place is tidy, you can see where the dirt is. Once you see where the dirt is, it just goes on and on and on. Like, you know, I remember one time I was at my mum's house and I ended up going around the whole house with a baby wipe. I think it was the first time that I realised the grub never stops. Goes on and on and on and on. Anyway, that's my rant for the day. If you are a cleaner, just, you know, be aware of what you're being paid to do, what might need more extra time and attention to, and then really just discussing that with your client and saying, look, if you would like me to spend an hour really washing the windows, getting in the frames, getting, you know, opening the window and getting right in there, it's going to be an extra service. I think these things should be given as tips, or, you know, if they're additional, I think, you know, at least when you do these things, it should be given as a tip, you know, but there should be some recompense, because cleaning is not easy. And as cleaners, as people who are even in the work environment, we're expected to keep an area clean. It gets overlooked so much, but it's so important and it shouldn't be undervalued. It should not, because when you walk into a clean environment, you can just feel it. It just feels nice, just feels yum. And you want to feel that hotel exquisite, everything done, you know, experience. There should be recompense for it, especially if you've got a good cleaner who is going over and above, just because that's just naturally what they do. You know, that's naturally how they live. They naturally just get right to it and make it look pristine. And, you know, they take on jobs that they, you know, other cleaners wouldn't, because they're not being paid to do that. So, as always, know your worth. Know your worth.